And therefore, don't accept this duality, that's all. In order that he may not get stuck to things, sometimes that people say that in what we might call little very strict and firm terms, vadantu shastrani, yajantu devan, kurvantu karmani, bhajantu devaha. Says whether you talk of shastra and worship devatas, etc., unless you have knowledge of yourself, in 100 Brahma, kalpa also, you cannot be free. That is not the dismissal of shastra, etc., but say that you have to ultimately go beyond that or grow out of that also. So that one doesn't get stuck. So you must know who is the person who is addressed here. When you have not entered the Shastra to begin with, or never worshipped any devatas to begin with, then you say, oh, that sounds very convenient, So karma tyaga can be there only for the person who has performed karma. Where is sannyasa? Sannyasa is, or tyaga, renunciation is, when you had something to begin with. If you had performed some upasana, then comes the question of giving up the upasana for something better. But most people conveniently use it as a means of not doing things because, after all, you have to give it up. Why should you do it in the first place? Like saying that after all, you have to extinguish the fire and therefore why to light it in the first place? But you have to cook your food. And so mind has to be cooked. Now that's a different thing. But when we are talking of the realities, then we have to know the reality of everything. And so the reality of the Lord or God who is seen other than me, that reality we must know. Unfortunately, that reality is mithya reality. In mithya it is exalted, but still mithya. And so satya will be only when God is known as the very self. So it is said, Jivadanyasya jnana shunyatva niyamena. Anything or anyone, anything other than jiva or anything other than the self is going to be inert and therefore cannot be locus of knowledge. Jnana shunyatva niyamena. Necessarily it must be devoid of knowledge because it is devoid of consciousness. So jnana shunyatva niyamena anumanat. So this is vyapti. Yad drushyam tad jadam tad jnana shunyam. And therefore, if you say Ishvara is other than jiva, then he cannot be an entity with any knowledge. Sarvajna Ishvara asiddhau. If you say Ishvara is other than jiva, then you cannot arrive at Ishvara who is Sarvajna or omniscient. How can it be? Ishvara is other than all of us. Then Ishvara doesn't have the kind of knowledge that suppose you accept him as a conscious entity, then also, as long as Ishvara is other than all of us, then at least Ishvara doesn't have the knowledge that we have. Because outside us. And whatever little power we have, that also he doesn't have. So he becomes an exalted entity, all right, but still limited in as much as he is not all inclusive. And even more than that, anything other than the self is going to be inert and therefore cannot be the locus of knowledge, and therefore Sarvagni Ishvaratva asiddhau. You cannot even prove an Ishvara who is omniscient if you think that Ishvara is different from Jiva. Tesham preraka bhavat, tesham paramanunam preraka bhavat, there will be no preraka. So if you say that the cause is other than jiva, there is no conscious being other than jiva, and therefore who is going to prompt these paramanus to form inside themselves into the world? Jagat arambhatva asambhavaha, and therefore you cannot in fact arrive at the creation itself. Everything is stuck there. The billiard balls are all there, ready to fall apart and ready to move. But you require someone, like the billiard balls are there, and all of them are very nicely stacked there. You need someone to create a little disturbance, then the motion will start. All the potential energy will manifest itself into kinetic energy, all right, but then you need some initiation. And if there is no one there to do that, then the billiard balls will remain as they are. You cannot commence anything, or there will be no movement. Similarly also at the time of dissolution, all the atoms are poised, ready to be prompted to do something, but then there is no one to prompt because jivas are not yet created, and Ishvara is not sarvajna or not with any knowledge, and therefore who will prompt them? So you cannot arrive at creation itself. That's how Vaisheshikas are dismissed. You cannot arrive at Ishvara who is sarvajna, and therefore there is no one who is a preraka. Then says Ratnaprabha, Svabhavadeva vichitram jagati lokayatah. This lokayata is materialists, meaning scientists. They don't want to bother with Ishvara, etc. This Svabhavadeva vichitram jagat. They say that matter creates itself. Why should we require an Ishvara other than matter to prompt this? We say that the matter itself has inherent intelligence to create itself, and therefore there is no need for a factor other than matter. This is lokayatikaha. So they say that this matter itself assembles itself in a particular form, which is what we call upadhi, and that's how Atma is nothing but matter. Swabhavad, they use the word Swabhavad. Eva vichitram jagat. Vichitram is variegated creation, is Swabhava. So what is this Swabhava? Tam pratyaha, tam tiraskaroti. And to him this is said, Nachaiti. Subhashyakara says, Nacha swabhavatah vishishta desha kala nimittanam iha upadana nacha swabhavatah jagatah utpatyadi sambhavayitum na shakyam iti anvayah. Swabhavatah, from swabhavastu pravarti. Gita also says, by the way, न कर्तृत्वम न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभु न कर्मफल संयोगम स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते न दत्ते कस्यचित् पावम न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेन आवृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः. No कर्तृत्वम, no भोक्तृत्वम, but still all कर्तृत्वम and all भोक्तृत्वम. So depends on what you want to say and to whom you are saying things. But anyway, that from swabhava, from nature, that by nature the matter creates, that also is not possible. Now how is it not possible? Ratnaprabhakara explains that further. What is meant by swabhava? Kim swayameva swasya hetu iti swabhava uta karana anapekshvatvam swabhava. Swabhava means naturally things happen. When you say naturally things happen, that for happening that take place in the universe, there is none other than what is perceptible. We don't accept any God who brings these happenings into being, brings about these happenings. We say that things happen by themselves. What do you mean by themselves? Swayameva swasya hetuhu. When you say that matter brings about itself into this form of creation, does it mean that matter itself is the cause of itself? Is one matter itself the cause and the effect? Is that what is meant by swabhava? Uta karana anapekshatvam. Or that matter which is effect, let us say for bringing about something, there is no apeksha or need for cause, that a thing comes into being without the need for a cause. So when you say that matter comes into being itself, either it is because that matter is a cause as well as the effect, or that there is no need for a cause, the effect just come into being without the need for a cause. This is called swabhava. Things are happening. Why? They're just happening. No reason at all. That would be swabhava. Or matter has itself the intelligence and therefore it knows what to do and therefore it brings itself into manifestation by its own intelligence. Na adhyah atma shrayat. One thing cannot be simultaneously cause and effect. A thing can be cause from a given standpoint and effect from another standpoint, but cannot be simultaneously cause and effect from the same standpoint. Otherwise, atma shraya dosha. Itself is the cause, itself is the effect, then it is dependent upon itself. Atma shraya, that's the dosha. You cannot visualize this. You can write it all right. Try to visualize that one thing itself is the cause and effect simultaneously. Because cause must necessarily precede the effect. You see, what is the idea of cause? Effect is something that comes into being later, and cause is something that obtains before the effect. So for a given thing to be cause, it must be there before the effect, and for a given thing to be effect, it must be there after the cause. For a thing to be simultaneously cause and effect, it must be before and after. That is just contradictory, you understand? And therefore, the causality and the effect, both of them cannot be in one locus. As we were saying yesterday, a given fellow is father, then he must exist before the son. And you call the effect the son, then he must come into being after the father. So effect, that is the idea with which that's how our mind thinks, that a sprout always, that is effect must come later, and seed which is the cause must precede. Otherwise what will happen? You take the seed automatically as tree also, Because for a thing to be cause and effect, the seed simultaneously and the sprout simultaneously. How can it be? Because in order for a thing to be seed, it has a certain characteristic in terms of time and place. In order for it to be sprout, it must have other characteristic in terms of time and place. How can a given thing be simultaneously seed and sprout, or flour and chapati, or milk and ice cream? It thing cannot be simultaneously. And therefore, this is called Atma-shaya dosha. It just does not make sense because you cannot visualize this in your mind. If you cannot visualize it, you cannot comprehend it, you cannot know it. Understand that after all the knowledge must take place in the mind. And if something is beyond the comprehension of mind, how can you know it? And if you cannot know it, then nobody has known it. If nobody has known it, how can you present it as a principle? So therefore, wherever there is a logical defect, it shows that the thing is not possible. So you cannot say that the matter is cause itself and effect itself. So svabhava cannot mean that. Then karana anapekshatvam, that the effects come into being without the need for cause. Then you cannot call it effect. In which case there will be no order at all. Take sher bhaji, take sher khaja, That means what? There is no rhyme and reason anywhere. In which case there will be total calamity. Because there is no cause and effect chain. But have you ever found such a thing? Have you ever found anything happening without the cause? You haven't found it. Can you bring anything into effect without the need for a cause? Can you create a pot, for example, without the clay? If you can do it, fine. Can you bring about a chapati without the need for flour? Very beautiful. Can you bring out the crop without the need for seeds? Will be nice. But we don't find this kind of things happening, and therefore, on what basis do you say that an effect comes into being without the cause? Where did you see it? If you cannot give an illustration, then your argument does not have any stand at all. That's what is being said, Nadvitiya ityaha vishishta iti. So Bhashyakara said, Vishishta desha kala nimittanam iha upadanat. In this world we find that to bring about any effect, it is necessary that a specific nimit desha, specific kala and specific nimitta is required. To bring about any effect, you must have an appropriate time, an appropriate place, an appropriate condition also is required. Then alone an effect can be brought into being. This is our experience, and what you are saying, that the effects are there without the need for a cause, just contradicts our experience, and therefore, where is the illustration? Says Ratnaprabha, explaining that Bhashya Vakya, Vishishta Desha Kala Nimittanam, Vishishtani meaning Asadharanani, unique. So Asadharanam Karanam, Karanam. For every effect you require a unique cause. If there is one cause for every effect, then you do not know what effect will come out from what cause. For a mango tree you require a unique seed called a mango seed. It's not that you just plant any seed and expect mango tree to come out. If any seed could bring about mango tree, then you can never know. You hope to bring about a mango tree and comes out a lemon tree or something like that, And you don't find that happening. And therefore, Vishishtani means Asadharanani. For every effect there must be a unique cause. There are certain general causes, like time and place and Ishvara and Adrushta, etc. But at the same time, there must be a unique cause associated with every effect. For every child, a unique cause, a unique set of parents is required. Otherwise, for every sprout, a unique seed is required. For every root chapati, a unique kind of flour is required. Or unique factors are required. Flour and then water and the combination and kneading, or whatever it is. Unique factors must be required. For every chapati, Because every chapati is different from every other one. And therefore, for everyone, a unique cause is required. Every day you get different dal. Never it is the same. Tea is the same. Every day, unique tea. Although they say that no, this is like no, that is even a machine cannot produce the same thing. And therefore, for every effect there must be a unique cause, a unique time, unique place, and unique conditions are required for every effect. This is our experience. Vishishtani meaning asadharanani deshakala nimittanim tesham karyarthabhi upadhimanatvat. We find that whoever wants to bring about a certain effect, karyarthi means one who is desirous of bringing about a karya or effect. We find that such a person always needs a specific time, a specific place, and a specific condition, and unique set of factors to bring about a specific effect. This is our experience. Karyasya karana anapekshhatvam na yuktam ityartha. Therefore, you cannot say that an effect is independent of a cause or an effect doesn't require a cause. It is not proper to say that because our experience reveals that every effect requires a specific cause. Anapekshatve now explains that, illustrates. Suppose to bring about a given effect, one did not require a cause. Dhanyarthanam bhuvisheshe. Dhanyarthi, the fellow is desirous of having a rice, crop. Oh, then for rice you require bhuvisheshe, a particular kind of soil, not any and every soil. You cannot grow rice in sand and in many other soils. Bhuvishesha, you require a particular kind of soil. Varshadi kale, at a particular time also the sowing must take place. Varshadi kale, at the time of Varsha meaning the rain, because rice requires plenty of water. So those little things, sprouts must be submerged in water. So without water, if you suppose sow these things, then also you cannot expect that crop. Bijadinimittecha, and also to produce rice, you must have the rice seeds and not some other kind of seeds. Suppose you could sow pebbles, and bring about rice, that would be nice. But that kind of thing cannot happen. Bijadinimittecha pravritti. Even this Nayayika, this Vaishya, whoever he is, who says that the effect does not require cause, he himself suppose wants to grow rice, what does he do? He will take rice seeds, wait for a given time, and go to a given place and sow in a given manner, and then alone the rice comes out. You demonstrate that in your life, in one place, then we will accept it. There is no illustration at all. So mere talk doesn't work. Reasoning doesn't mean that you just talk, Everywhere drishtanta is required. A lot of things are required. Vyapti is required. So pravritti nasya, therefore it is said, nacha svabhavadaha Vishishta deshakala nimittanam iha upadanat. Continuing, Ratna Prabha says, Purvokta sarvajñatvadi visheshanakam ishwaram muktva jagatah utpatyadikam nasambhavati iti bhashyena kartaram vina karyam nasti iti vyatirekah uktah. Bhashyakara said that Yathokta Visheshanam Ishwaram Muktva, meaning other than Ishvara who is Sarvajñah Sarvashaktiman, other than Ishvara such as that, Jagata Utpatyadikam Nasambhavati, that the creation, sustenance, dissolution of the universe are not possible. When Bhashyakara says this, then what is said? Kartaram vina karyam nasti, that an effect of the creation cannot be unless there is a karta or an agent of action. So there must be a creator without whom the creation cannot be. So when it is said that there cannot be a creation other than the Ishvara, it is said that there cannot be an effect unless there is a karta or a nimitta karanam. Iti vyatireka uktah. So when vyatireka is said, anvaya also follows. What is anvaya? Tena yat karyam tat sakartrukam iti vyapti jnayate. So Bhashyakara points out a vyapti. Vyapti means what? The invariable relationships. Is yat karyam tat sakartrukam. Wherever karyam is there, effect is there, tat sakartrukam, it must necessarily have a karta or a doer, meaning it must have an efficient cause. An effect must necessarily have an efficient cause. That is how sarvajñatvam is established. When you can establish Ishvara as efficient cause of the creator must necessarily have the knowledge of what is to be created, and that is how we arrive at what we call the omniscience of God. Says Ratnaprabha, etadeva vyapti jnanam jagadi pakshe kartaram sadayat sat sarvajneshwaram sadayati kim shrutyayati tarkikanam bhrantim upanyasyati. Etadeva vyapti jnanam. What is the vyapti? Yat yat karyam tat tat sakartrukam. Wherever there is karya or the effect, there must necessarily be a karta or a creator. This is vyapti, based on our common experience. Says, etadeva vyapti jnanam, this very knowledge, vyapti jnanam meaning the very knowledge of this vyapti or the invariable relationship. Jagati pakshe, then jagat becomes paksha. Jagat is where we have to establish something. Kartaram sadat, jagat also is karyam. So yat yat karyam tat sakartrukam. Jagat abhi sakartrukam karyatvat. Jagat also, creation also is what? An effect or a product. And therefore, there must be karta, the creator there. And thus, from jagat, observation of the jagat itself, because it is effect, we arrive at what we call the creator of the universe. And this is the first thing. First is to establish creator. There's a hard time. To first establish that there is God, is the first thing that is questioned by everybody. Where is your God? How do you say there is God? Because this universe baffles everybody, and therefore you expect God to be of such and such nature, we say God is, that's all we say. Because the universe is a product. It is a systematic, deliberate, intelligent product. Everything is in its own place. And it's an assembly, and assembly always is brought into being by someone other than assembly. And all these arguments are presented to show the possibility of presence of God. And then what must be the nature of that God? God must be necessarily omniscient, because the doer of the creator must necessarily have the knowledge of what is created. And therefore, sarvajneshwaram sadhayati. This anumanam of the vyapti, first enabling us to arrive at the existence of God, subsequently also enables us to arrive at the omniscience of God. Yo yat karta satajñah. Whoever is a karta, once you say yat karyam tat sakartrukam, wherever the effect is, then the karta must be yo yat karta satajñah. Whoever is the karta or the doer must necessarily be the knower also. Ghatakarta ghatagñah. The creator of a pot must have the knowledge of pot. So, jagat karta, jagatñah or sarvajñah, and therefore the creator of the universe must be omniscient. Thus, in a second step, you arrive at, from the very vyapti, when you extend it, you arrive at what we call you arrive at the sarvajña Ishvara or the omniscience of God. So, when you can establish or arrive at God, and that God is omniscient, omnipotent by very reasoning, by tarka, kim shrutya? Then what's the need for shruti? Why do you have to depend upon shruti or the Upanishad to establish God and the omniscience and omnipotence of the God? Why? Iti tarkikanam bhrantim. This is a bhranti or the Brahma that tarkikas have. Tarkikas are logicians. They think that they can establish anything by logic. And if something can be established by logic, there is scientists. Scientists are nothing but logicians. Except that scientists have now greater tools. Formerly logicians had the tool in terms of their own prakriyas and their own technical language. Scientists now have gone a step further, where they can express the logic in terms of mathematics. So what we call mathematics is nothing but a tool which is similar to all these yo yat karta satajñah. This is also a mathematics, is an equation. Yat karyam ta sakartrukam is an equation. And so scientists went a step further and expressed all these equations in mathematical terms. So they gained a greater flexibility of manipulating things, which we do here also. Now Tarkikas also do. So understand that a scientist basically is a Tarkika. Except that we have also what we call we experimental science also. And then we stretch the limits of our knowledge and Tarka by experiments and therefore by observing the different phenomena. And by developing also the instruments of observations, we stretch also the scope of our knowledge, and that is how this reasoning is extended. This is how the science proceeds. But basically, what is a scientist? He is a Tarkika. And he does not see the need of accepting God or anybody else because he is proud that he can explain anything, if not today, tomorrow. And therefore, there is a division between what we call science and religion. They think that religion means people who just simply blindly follow the scriptures. They don't apply their brain. That's how they dismiss them. And the religious fellows dismiss scientists as people who are just jadas, and therefore, there is how just tarka jadaha, people who simply depend upon the reasoning and with no shraddha at all. So the shraddha is dismissed by the scientists as blind faith, and total dependence upon reason is dismissed by the religious people as lack of shraddha. So they cannot meet each other. But you must know that enough reasoning is here, in the scriptures, at least as much as any scientist can provide, or any Tarkika can provide, and more. Because you have to establish before these fellows the validity or pramanya of the Shruti. So, if all the time Vedantin, being a Vaidika, always wants to establish the Shruti as pramanam, as ultimate means of knowledge, and no tarka, nothing. If you can surrender the ground in one place and the fellows will attack you, and ultimately dismiss the whole thing. So at no place can you allow themselves or yourself to be, take things for granted. This sounds very logical. Yat karyam, yat karyam, tat sakartrikam. And thus you arrive at the karta of the jagat. Yo yat karta satajñah. And thus you arrive at the creator as the omniscient also. So the creator and the omniscience of the creator, if both of them seem to be arrived at by the logic, then what's the need for Shruti? Why should we depend upon Shruti of the Upanishad for ascertainment of nature of God? This is Bhranti. Bhrantya, Brusham Vadina. Because of Bhranti, they talk very loudly, you see. And when you talk loudly, more people listen to you. And when you can talk with a certain force, then people will also come under your spell. And all that stuff is okay. But that doesn't make things right. Just because you can talk loudly in a certain manner doesn't make it right, because the right truth doesn't, the criterion for truth is not the force with which you deliver, the truth with which, which is contained in what you deliver. So this Tarkika is a Bhranti. So, Bhrantim Upanyasyati. That Bhranti is presented here by Shankaracharya. How Tarkikas have this Bhranti? Doesn't dismiss it. Upanyasyati. Upanyasa means presenting. Etadeva iti, Subhashyakara says, Etadeva anumanam samsari vyatirikta ishwarastittvadi sadhanam manyante ishwara karaninaha. Etadeva anumanam, this anumanam that we just presented, which Bhashyakara presented, which anumanam, Vyatireki anumanam Bhashyakara presented, that other than Ishvara who is omniscient, there cannot be, this Jagat could not have come into being, and therefore there is Karta and who is omniscient. So this Vyatireka anumana enabled us to arrive at this Vyapti, Yad Yad Karyam Tat Tat Sakartrikam. And this is the Etadeva anumanam, this very inference or this very Vyapti, this invariable concomitance or the invariable relationship, Vyapti itself is presented Etadeva anumanam. Ishvara karaninaha, doesn't say a Tarkika or Vaisheshika, both they are the same. Nyaya and the Vaisheshika, they have the same kind of reasoning. Ishvara karaninaha, meaning those people who accept Ishvara. Ishvara as a cause. Ishvara karaninaha means those who accept Ishvara or God as the cause of this creation. They say what? Etadeva anumanam, that this very anumanam or the very inference depends on how you define anumanam. That battle will go on a little later. What is meant by anumanam or inference? Different people have different opinions. Vyapti jnanam anumanam, and sometimes linga is anumanam. Different things are presented as anumanam. Paramarsha, Anumanam, etc. But anyway, Etadeva Anumanam, this very inference, Samsari Vyatirikta Ishvara Astitvadi Sadhanam Manyante. They believe, Manyante, they think, these Tarkikas and Vaisheshikas think that this logic is, or this reasoning is, sadhanam, adequate means for establishing Ishvara Astitva, existence of God, Astitvadi, meaning Sarvajñatvam. So to establish existence and omniscience and omnipotent of God, this particular Anumanam is adequate means sadhanam. And who that Ishvara must be? Samsari Vyatirikta. This is one thing. Purusha Visheshaha. So what is the Ishvara that they present? Samsari Vyatirikta. They accept that samsari being a jiva, a limited created being, cannot be the cause of the universe, and therefore they accept Ishvara, who is a conscious being other than jiva, and an omniscient, omnipotent, he is the creator of the universe. And they think that this Anumanam or the reasoning argument is enough to establish Ishvara such as that who is other than samsara. This is what they believe. When they say they believe, means that belief is not true. It is a belief and therefore it is abhasa. Says Yatna Brahma in the last line, Etadeva Anumanameva Sadhanam Na Shruti Hiti Manyante Iti Yojana. So when we have told you many a time this story of Laplace, who was a great mathematician, French mathematician. His Laplace transformation is quite famous in the partial the mathematics, So he was a great scientist, and he himself, worked out so many mathematical equations to explain the world phenomenon, and he arrived at 4 volumes. Explaining all the various phenomena that are taking place mathematically. Because the contention of Laplace and other scientists and mathematicians was that all we need is one fundamental equation, then we can explain everything in the universe. And so they kept on observing different phenomena and trying to relate them mathematically to arrive at a fundamental equation, the relationship. And they also said that if we cannot discover it today, I am sure that we can, some other scientist will be able to discover it sometime. With this kind of assurance, he arrived at, or he worked out 4 volumes of these mathematical equations, big thesis, and presented it to Napoleon. And as his work, then Napoleon asked him, he went through it. Apparently Napoleon must be a very intelligent person. So he went through this work and says, I don't find any reference of God in here. He says, in these 4 volumes, I don't find any reference to God at all. He says, we don't need God. Laplace says, we don't need God because we can explain things. And therefore, you don't need to throw in a factor of God. When do you bring in God? When you cannot explain things. Today also, when do we need God? Why is Swamiji? Why is it like this? Well, it is God. It is Prarabdha. It is Daivam and things like that. And that is how we always have to say. So these are all Purushartha fellows. Prarabdha Vadina and Purushartha Vadina. There is always a fight between them. So these Western people are what? They always believe in Purushartha. Most of the people, those are religious people are different, but then all the real active and scientific and all these people are always believe in self-effort. And in Indians believe in what? Prarabdha. They believe in some kind of self-effort also, but primarily in Prarabdha. So, Bhagavan Karshe, whatever God does is alright, But our Tarkikas are also were like this, that they did not see the need for Ishvara, Then suppose they accept Shruti, and accept Shruti only in as much as it is in conformity with logic. And to that extent they will accept Shruti and not as an independent Pramanam. Etadeva anumanameva sadhanam na Shruti hiti manyante iti yojana. That is Tarkikas or Vaisheshikas. Tarkikas believe that this Anumanam itself is a Pramanam and not Shruti. Sadhanam Ishvara Siddhau Sarvajñatvadi Siddhau cha Pramanam. You want to see how they arrive at? Purnananda explains that, How this Anumanam is Vyapti Jnanatmakam Anumanam. Vyapti is what? Yad yad karyam tat sakartrukam. Yo yad karta satadnyah. This Vyapti, this is Anumanam. Vyapti Jnanatmakam Anumanam. Anumanam, which is the nature of this Vyapti, that itself is sadhanam, meaning Ishvara Siddhau, Sarvajñatvadi Siddhau cha Pramanam. By this Vyapti or by this reasoning, we can establish the existence of God, arrive at the existence of God, as well as omniscience of God. Evakara Vyavartyamaha na Shrutihi etadeva anumanam. Eva means not Shruti is a Pramanam. Go to page 104 and see Purnananda. What kind of arguments are presented? Ankuradikam sakatrukam karyatvad ghatavat iti anumanena. Ghata is accepted illustration by everybody. Ghata means a pot. Is an accepted illustration that it requires a material cause and an efficient cause. If you don't accept, if you don't come to an agreement with one illustration, then there is no argument at all. So even in arguments also, there is always this sampratipannam. Both the sides accept certain illustration, drishtanta. Acceptable to both the sides. Ghata is an accepted illustration that ghata or a pot requires both material as well as the efficient cause. So karyatvat, ghata is what? A karya or a product. Ankuradikam. Now then, in case of ghata, the creator or the doer is evident. That's why we accept it as an illustration. In case of a pot, the pot maker also is perceptible to us, can be determined by us, as well as the clay. So both the efficient and the material cause, both of them are evident. Therefore, we accept it as illustration. And we can stretch that illustration and the rule that we find here into those cases where one of these is not evident. Like Ankuradikam, a sprout. Now, whether a sprout, who creates a sprout? You don't see anybody bringing out the sprout. As far as the material cause is concerned, you may say that the seed is the material cause for the sprout and the earth and so forth. But how about the efficient cause? You don't see any entity bringing out the sprout and transforming it into a tree and so forth. You don't see anybody. This is where now what we learned in case of a pot is to be applied. Ankuradikam sakartrukam. That thing such as a sprout, where the karta or the doer is not evident, sakartrukam, it also must have a karta or a doer. Karyatvad, because a sprout also is in a product or is an effect. Ghatavat, just as a pot is a product or an effect, and it has a creator, so also a sprout, being a product or an effect, must have a creator. Iti anumanena sakartrukatve sadhide sati. So then, a sprout also, or anything like a sprout, has a karta. This is established by yat karyam tat sakartrukam, by that vyapti. Kartuhu anekatve gauravat. Then how many kartas are there? Somebody may say that the sun is the creator. Somebody may say water is the creator. Somebody may say earth is the creator. Somebody may say all kinds of, perhaps you might assign the creatorship to factors more than one. Kartuhu anekatve gauravatvat. Gauravat. Then there will be too much, Gaurava means what? It becomes too tedious to have so many kartas. Ekatve tu lagvam. So it is only proper that eka, the karta must be only one and not more than one, because there will be no agreement between them. If there are too many cooks to make something, then you know what happens. There will be no agreement. There are more than one cooks to make sambar, then what? There will be perhaps salt added 3 times or not added at all. And so it is only proper that the creator must be one. And so also when such things as sprout etc. are seen to be created, then there cannot be too many creators, there must be one creator. Iti tu lagavam. Lagavam means brevity. And then alone it will be consistent. Otherwise, more than one karta will only create confusion. Lagava jnana sahakarena eka kartrutvam siddhyati. Yo yad karyam tat sakartrukam. That effect must have a karta, and inasmuch as more than one karta would only make a mess. Therefore, and we find things happening systematically, therefore there must be only one karta. Ekakartrukatvam siddhyati, and therefore you arrive at Ekakartrukatvam, meaning one karta, one creator. Tatcha sarvajñatvantarana sambhavati. Yo yat karta sadajñah. Whoever is the creator must have the knowledge of what is created. And therefore, the creator of the sprout must have the knowledge of the sprout. So, creator of the world must have the knowledge of the world. And that is how, with the world as the Jagat as a Paksha, we arrive at the creator as well as we arrive at the omniscient creator. Sarvajñatvam antarana sambhavati. It is sarvajñatvam siddhyati. And that is how you establish siddhyati, means what you prove. Not only there is a karta, and one karta of the creator, he must be omniscient. Tathacha sarvajñeshvara siddhi. And this is how, by the anumana of an infinite self, you can establish God who is omniscient, omnipotent. Tasmat anumanameva pramanam. Therefore, Tarkikas say that anumanameva pramanam, inference or reasoning alone is valid means of knowledge. Shrutistu na pramanam, but Shruti is not pramanam. Iti Tarkikaha manyante iti bhavaha. This is what the Tarkikas believe. Okay, now we'll continue that belief tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sūtra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Atha Om Atha Om Atha Yasya Yataha 102. न यथोक्त विशेषणस्य जगतः यथोक्त विशेषणमीश्वरं मुक्त्वा अन्यतः प्रधानात् अचेतनात् अणुभ्यः अभावात् संसारिणो वा उत्पत्त्यादि संभावयितुं शक्यम् न च स्वभावतः विशिष्टदेशकालनिमित्तानाम् इहोपादानात् एतदेवानुमानम् संसारव्यतिरिक्त ईश्वरास्तित्वादिसाधनम् मन्यन्ते ईश्वरकारणिनः। न यथोक्त विशेषणस्य जगतः यथोक्त विशेषणम् ईश्वरम् उक्त्वा. The Jagat or the creation which is as such, which is, as you said, manifest in the form names and forms, consisting of many kartas and bhoktas, having regulated karma, karma phala with reference to the space, time and the causality and the situations, and that which has its construction or the creation which cannot be comprehended by the mind, which is incomprehensible, of creation such as thus. There cannot be anyone other than Ishvara, who is Sarvajñah, Sarvashakti, who must be Chetana, who must be Sarveshvara. So other than Ishvara such as this cannot be the cause of a creation such as this. Pradhanam, which is primordial matter, which is inert, cannot be the cause, because it is inert and therefore cannot have the knowledge, cannot have deliberation. Anubhyaha, anu, or these atoms also cannot be the cause of creation, Again, they are inert. They depend upon the prerana, they depend upon the inspiration of some other conscious being in order for them to become active. Abhavat, shunyam or non-existence also cannot be the cause of the creation, because from non-existence, existence cannot come out. Samsarinaha, not even a created being can be the cause of the creation, because it is limited. Utpatyadi sambhavayitum shakyam, and therefore the utpatti sthiti laya of this creation cannot be traced to anyone other than Ishvara. Najas svabhavataha, and no one can say that it is matter or world that just evolves by itself. Vishishta desha kala nimittanam iha upadanat, because we find that whenever we want to create something, it is our experience that we require, the creation depends upon a specific time, a specific place, a specific condition, a specific material, a specific knowledge, a specific equipment. All of these we find are required in order to bring about any creation in this world. And therefore, to imagine that creation of the universe as such has come out without the need of any of this cause, it just does not make sense. It is not. The universe has come out or is what it is without any reason. That itself is a reason. It cannot be, because one thing cannot be simultaneously the cause and the effect. Nor can we say that there can be an effect unless there is a cause, and the svabhava or just nature cannot be the cause of the creation. Etadeva anumanam, what we presented is like the inference which is presented by the Vaisheshikas and the Naiyayikas, in order to establish astitva or existence of God, as well as to arrive at sarvajñatvam or omniscience of God. Thus Naiyayikas, who do not accept Shruti as Swatantra Pramanam, but who would rather accept Anumanam or Tarka as the Swatantra Pramanam, would say that astitva of the Ishvara or existence of God can be established by an inference. Yad yad karyam tat sakartrikam. Whatever is karyam or effect must necessarily have a karta or a doer or a creator. There cannot be a creation without a creator. The world or universe is a creation, therefore there must be a creator. So this is not a possibility of creator, this is knowledge of creator, understand. When anuman or inference is presented as a pramana or means of knowledge, then it creates knowledge. According to them, this inference that since the world is a creation, there must be a creator, and thus you arrive at the existence of creator. Yo yat karta satadnyaha. The creator must necessarily have the knowledge of what is created, and therefore the creator must have the knowledge of the world that is created, and therefore he must be all-knowing, he must be omniscient. This is how Naiyayikas say that we can establish the existence as well as the omniscience, etc. of the creator of Ishvara with inference. Therefore, there is no need for Shruti. So Shruti or Upanishad or Veda do not have to be what we call an independent pramanam or means of knowledge, but anumanam can be etadeva anumanam eva sadhanam na shruti iti manyante iti yojana, that the Tarkikas and Vaisheshikas think that this anumanam, this inference, which is of the nature of vyapti. Here anumanam or inference is of the nature of vyapti, invariable concomitance. As we say, that yad yad karyam tat tat sakartrukam, yo yat karta satadnyaha, these kind of invariable relationships, which is called anumanam here, that is adequate to establish existence and other attributes of God, and therefore Shruti need not be accepted as independent pramanam. Okay. So Ratnaprabhakara interpreted statement of Bhashyakara in this manner. Etadeva anumanam Ishvara astitvadi samsari vyatirikta. Ishvara astitvadi sadhanam manyante. Ishvara karaninaha. Those people who accept Ishvara accept this anumanam as the pramanam of the valid means of knowledge. which means that those fellows don't accept Shruti. So if you interpret the statement of Etad Eva, where Evakara is interpreted as exclusion of Shruti, Vyavartanam. So you say it excludes Shruti and presents Anumanam as a Swatantra Pramanam, then Naiyayikas are presented as those who are Avaidikaha, meaning they do not accept Vedas and they accept merely Anumanam as Pramanam. And we don't call Naiyayikas Avaidikas, we call them Astikas also. So Swatantra Tathacha Ishvara Sadbhave Shrutehe Apramanye Tarkikasya Avaidikatvapattihi iti Asvarasad. So Ratnaprabhakara feels that interpreting Bhashyakara's statement in this manner, where the Tarkikas are presented as those accepting Anumanam as Pramanam and not Shruti, then those people will be branded as what? Avaidikaha. And that's not proper. And therefore, Ratnaprabhakara himself presents an alternate explanation of that statement of Bhashyakara. Athvaidi. So, Ratnaprabha says, just at the end of page 103, last word, Athva, Etad Vyapti Jnanameva Shrutyanugrahaka Yuktimatratvena Asmat Sammatam Sat Anumanam Swatantram iti Manyante ityarthaha. Or maybe put it this way. So, this statement of Bhashyakara, Etadeva Anumanam Sadhanam Manyante, what is Etad? Etad Anumanam is Vyapti Jnanam. This Vyapti Jnanam, Yoyat Karta, etc. Shrutyanugrahakam Grahaka Yukti Matratvena Asmat Sammatam. Asmat Sammatam, Vedanti Sammatam. So Vedantins do accept this Vyapti, this Anumanam, Vyaptyatmakam Anumanam, as Shruti Anugrahaka. Shruti Anugrahaka meaning that which enables us to remove doubts and questions pertaining to the arriving at the Tatparya of the Shruti. So in arriving at the Tatparya, the purport of the Upanishad, it is necessary for us to also employ the reason in order to eliminate various doubts and questions that may arise in our mind. In that sense, we can say that Anumanam is Shrutyanugrahakam, something that helps clarify the meaning of the Shruti. This is how Vedantins accept the place of Anumanam, which will be brought up for discussion immediately. However, Anumanam such as this, which is accepted by the Vedantins as Shrutya Anugrahakam, as something that is helpful in arriving at the meaning of the Shruti. This Anumanam Swatantramiti Manyante Tarkikaha. But Anumana, this kind of Anumanam, however, they accept Swatantra. They also say that Shruti also helps, but ultimately it is Anumanam which only determines the nature of thing and not Shruti. Swatantram meaning Swatantra Pramana Vityartha. So Purnanandya says Tasacha Shrutehe Anumana Siddhartha Anuvadakatvena Pramanyamini Bhavaha. So in this interpretation, the Naiyayikas also would be said to accept Shruti as Pramanam, not Swatantra Pramanam, as Anumana Siddhartha Anuvadakatvena. According to the Naiyayikas, Shruti the Upanishads merely do Anuvada, meaning reiteration of what has been arrived at by Anumanam. In the first interpretation, Anumanam alone is Pramanam, Shruti is not. That's not a proper interpretation. So we say that Naiyayika's position is that Anumanam is a primary Pramanam, but Shruti also becomes Pramanam in as much as Shruti reiterates what Anumanam says, and therefore they accept Shruti also as Pramanam. It doesn't have the same place as Anumanam, but it is also accepted as Pramanam. Then Purnanandya continues, Ekenaiva Anumanena Sarvagnya Kartruvatva Sadhya Siddhau Drishtanta Abhavat Na Sarvagnya Ishvara Siddhiti Asvarasad Aha Yadvaiti. So Swatantra Manyante Sarvagnyatvam Adi Shabdartha Ishvara Astitvadi. Sarvagnyatvam is Adi Shabdartha in the Bhashya. Says here Purnanandya that just one Anumanam or one inference cannot be, one inference is not adequate to arrive at the Sarvagnya, meaning the omniscience, and Kartrutva, meaning the creatorship of Ishvara. There is no drishtanta that by one vyapti or one anumanam you can arrive as both karta as well as omniscience. And therefore, na sarvagni ishvara siddhi iti asvara sadaha. So just one anumanam, what yad karyam tat sakartrukam, that anumanam cannot be, is not adequate to arrive at both kartrutva and sarvajnatva of Ishvara. And therefore, Ratna Prabhakara gives a slightly different interpretation, yadva iti. Says Ratna Prabha in the second line, yadva vyapti jnana sahakritam etad lakshanam eva anumanam manyante ityartha. Says, okay, vyapti jnana sahakritam. What is vyapti jnanam? Yadyat karyam tattat sakartrukam. Yo yat karta satadnyaha. This is vyapti jnanam. But vyapti jnanam along with this lakshanam, janmad yasyatah. So even this lakshana sutra also is accepted having some kind of pramanyam. That vyapti jnanam along with this lakshanam becomes the pramanam for arriving at Ishvara astitva and Ishvara sarvajnatvadikam. Yadva vyapti jnana sahakritam etal lakshanam. This lakshanam janmadyasyatah in conjunction with the vyapti jnanam yadyat karyam etc. anumanam manyante ityartha. That becomes anumanam. So merely vyapti jnanam. So what is meant by vyapti jnanam is whatever is within the range of our observation. So our experience is wherever the creation is, there must be a creator. And wherever creation is, there must be knowledge. Knowledge must necessarily precede the creation. This is our common experience. But and therefore the vyapti or the invariable concomitance that we arrive at is based on this experience. But Ratna Prabhakara feels that this vyapti is not enough to arrive at Ishvara sarvajnatva etc. And therefore he says that this lakshanam janmadyasyatah, that Brahman is that from which the janma etc. utpatti etc. of the creation is, this lakshana sutra in conjunction with the vyapti jnanam will become anumanam. So what is anumanam? First vyapti jnanam was presented as anumanam. Now this lakshanam, allo vyapti sahakritam lakshanam, this lakshanam janmadyasyatah, meaning the definition along with the vyapti jnanam is presented as anumanam, and that is adequate to arrive at the astitva and sarvajnatva of Ishvara. This is the idea. Okay. So janmadi sutrokta jagat karanatva lakshanameva kartuhu sarvajnatva siddhu hetu hiti manyante. It is not vyapti jnanam that becomes a hetu, but the lakshanam becomes a hetu, lakshanam along with vyapti jnanam. लक्षण सूचितेन पूर्वोक्तानुमानेन सकर्तृकत्वात्रं साध्यते सर्वज्ञत्वं तु लक्षण हेतुक अनुमानान्तरेण अभिप्रायं स्फुटयति लक्षण सूचितेन पूर्वोक्तानुमानेन यद्यत् कार्यं तत् सकर्तृकं. This is the पूर्वोक्तानुमानम which is indicated by lakshana. Then you can arrive at only sakartrukatva, meaning you can arrive at Ishvara as a karta. But then sarvajñatvam tu lakshana hetuka anumanantarena, that you require another anumanam which also lakshana becomes a hetu. Iti abhiprayam sphutayati tatrayamiti. So now Ratna Prabhakara explains, it will become simple. Tatra ayam vibhagaha. So this is vibhagaha. This is how you have to see clearly. Vyapti jnana jagataha karta asti iti astitva siddhi. By this vyapti jnanam, by the rule, yo yat yat karyam tat sakartrukam, that's what Bhashyakara presented. That other than Ishvara, who is omniscient, omnipotent, no one can ever bring about the creation as such as this. And that is how, without Ishvara the Karta, there cannot be this creation. This Vyatireka was presented there, and thus it presented a Vyapti that wherever the effect of the creation is, there must be a creator. And that this Lakshana Sutram Janmadyasyatah also includes this Vyapti or suggests this Vyapti. Therefore, this Vyapti, Lakshana Sutra along with the Vyapti, is adequate merely to arrive at Kartrutvam or the creatorship of Lord, but not enough to arrive at some Sarvajñatvam or omniscience of the Lord. That's what Ratna Prabha says, Vyapti Jnanat Jagadaha Karta Astiti Astitva Siddhi. By the Vyapti Jnanam, in as much as the universe is a creation, that there is a Karta, and this is how you arrive at Jagat Kartrutvam of Ishvara, that Ishvara is the creator of the Jagat. पश्चात सकर्ता सर्वज्ञः जगत कारणत्वाद व्यतिरेकेण कुलालादिवत् इति सर्वज्ञत्व सिद्धि लक्षणादिति. Then this karta or the creator of the universe is sarvagnya, omniscient. Why? Jagat karanatvat yo yat karta satadnya. So ghatakarta ghatagnya. The kulala or the pot maker also has a knowledge, but knowledge of a pot, and he is always limited. So anyone who is a creator of the limited thing must have limited knowledge. God, who is the creator of the whole universe, limitless universe, therefore his knowledge also is limitless. In this manner you arrive at the sarvajñatvam or omniscience of God. This is how the Naiyayikas think, that they can establish the existence and omniscience etc. of God by the Vyapti Jnanam along with this Lakshanam. This is what they think they can do. Atra manyante iti anumanasya abhasatvam suchitam. But this anumanam, even along with Lakshanam, is only abhasa. It is not real anumanam. It is false in fact. It is not adequate. Sounds very clear, when it is presented this way. But when you really press for the accuracy, then you find that there are places where it does not stand to the scrutiny of reasoning. Says Ratna Purnanandiya, Lakshanaditi sarvajñatvam vina jagat karanatvam na sambhavati tatha च सर्व जगत कारणत्व लक्षण सामर्थ्या सर्वज्ञत्व सिद्धि इति भावः. Inasmuch as the Lakshana Sutra presents the Ishvara as Jagat Karanam, and Jagat Karanatvam cannot be unless there is omniscience there. That is how this Lakshana itself becomes a hetu for another Vyapti, that Jagat Karta must be Sarvajñah, and this is how you can arrive at Sarvajñatvam of Ishvara. ईश्वर जगतः कारणम येषाम ते ईश्वर कारणकाः काणाद प्रभृत इति भाष्यार्थ. ईश्वर कारणिनः मीनिंग दोस पीपल हु एक्सेप्ट ईश्वर एज द कॉज ऑफ द क्रिएशन. तत्तन्मद वैलक्षण्येन अनुमान वैलक्षण्यं विस्तरेण तर्कपदे वक्ष्यते. अधुना काणाद मत अनुसारेण मार्ग प्रदर्शन मात्रमत्र कृतं विस्तर भयादि मंतव्यम. Merely काणाद mata is taken here for discussion, but many matas are there. For example, Naiyayikas have a mata and Kanada, other people have different matas about Ishvara, establishing existence or non-existence. All of these will be taken in great detail in the second quarter of the second chapter. Thank God. And so here, that kind of elaboration is not done. But, manyante iti anumanasya abhasatvam suchitam. When Bhashyakara says sadhanam manyante, that means that Bhashyakara doesn't think that this anumanam or inference accepted by Naiyayikas as pramanam is adequate really to arrive at the existence of omniscience. Bhashyakara doesn't think. If anumanam or inference or swatantra buddhi of the human being is adequate to arrive at God, then don't require Shruti. God is atindriya, is beyond the scope of the sense organs, the kind of God that we are talking about anyway. And that being the case, there is no way that anumanam, which is only based on indriya jnanam, indriya janya jnanam, all inference is based on our experience. All our experience is based on the perception. And therefore, the anumanam is necessarily based on perceptual knowledge. And therefore, as the perceptual knowledge, the scope of perceptual knowledge changes, anumanam also will change. Therefore, tarka or anumanam is no pratishtha according to the Vedantas. Tarko apratishtha. Tarka doesn't have pratishtha because tomorrow you will discover something else. You might find people coming from some other planet having 6 sense organs, and therefore they know something more than we know. And then the inference that they will apply will be of a different nature. And so the conclusions arrived at by inference are always going to be only temporary or provisional, let us say, can never be final. So to arrive at the finality of the knowledge, what's the pramanam? Shruti is the pramanam. So it is very necessary for Vedantin all the time to establish Shruti as pramanyam by showing that nothing else is pramanam. And by showing that what Shruti says is reasonable, both ways. It's not that we merely assert that Shruti is pramanam, but that whatever Shruti says is reasonable. And therefore, And of course, it is something that can be verified, has been verified by great people and can be verified by everyone. In that manner, Shruti is presented as ultimate Pramanam. And so, now Ratnaprabhakara proceeds to show how there is Abhasatvam, how the Anumanam, Yadyat Karyam Tat Sakardrukam, Yoyat Karta Satajnyaha, and Janmadhyasyata, all these three in combination also are not enough to establish the existence and omniscience of God, says Tathahi, to illustrate. So, Vistara Bhayad, here in this case there is no Vistara, just indications are given, So he said, Marga Pradashana Matram Kritam Vistara Bhayad, just to give the direction. The indications are given here. Ankuradu Tavad Jivaha Kartana Bhavati. Said Ankuradikam Sakartrikam Karyatvat. That a sprout must have a creator or a karta because it's an effect or a product. Ghatavat, because Ghata also is a product. Ankura or sprout also is a product. And therefore Ankura also must have a creator like a pot has. So Sakardrukatvam, Jagat also is Karyam, and therefore Sakardrukam. And then it must be one karta only, not too many kartas, Laghavam. And that Jagat cannot be possible unless there is omniscient. The creator must necessarily have the knowledge, and therefore the creator of the Jagat, once you establish the creator of Jagat, then omniscience can be established. Because creator must necessarily have the knowledge, and therefore the one who has created the world must have the knowledge of the world. But provided you can establish creator to begin with, that's where the attack is here. So Ankura, let us take the illustration of Ankura or a sprout. It's a beautiful illustration in as much as, Ghata, as we said, is an illustration which is accepted by both the parties because we see ourselves the creator of the pot. So we know that pot necessarily is a creator. But when it comes to a sprout or a plant, you don't know who has created this. So now the question arises whether the knowledge that we gain from a pot can necessarily be applied to a sprout, and can that be extended to the universe or not? Let us see. Now Ankuradu Tavat. He says, okay, Karta is all right. Let us Ankura or a sprout must have a Karta or must have a creator. What is the nature of that creator? Who is that creator? Ta jiva tavat kartana bhavati. Number one, a jiva or a limited individual cannot be the creator of a sprout. Why? Because he is limited in knowledge and limited in ability. And therefore, no jiva or no limited individual can be the creator of the sprout. So first, jiva is eliminated. Now, jiva is a conscious being. If conscious being is not the karta or the creator of a sprout or things like that, then who is the creator? Someone other than jiva. Who is someone other than jiva? Yad drishyam tad jadam, as we said yesterday. Jiva is only conscious being. We don't accept any other conscious being because you can't establish. Consciousness cannot become the object of perception. You cannot visualize consciousness, you cannot objectify consciousness. Whatever you can objectify must necessarily be inert, must necessarily be limited in place, in time, in condition. And whatever is limited in time, place and condition must necessarily be a product. And whatever is a product must necessarily be inert, because product is that which is a birth, which is a death, which will perish, and therefore it must be inert. And therefore, whatever can be perceived has necessarily to be inert. Consciousness cannot be perceived because it cannot be visualized or objectified. Therefore, you cannot even say that there is a consciousness other than you, because how do you say? Swamiji, I see so many conscious beings, but what do you see? You see conscious beings as what? You merely see the bodies, that's all you see. And that body reflects consciousness. So what you are seeing is reflected consciousness, which reflects itself through the vehicle of a body, but not consciousness as such. Is it possible for you or anyone to see consciousness devoid of a name and form? When consciousness or existence gets conditioned by a name and form, then alone it becomes perceptible, like electricity. When it gets conditioned by a bulb and manifests in the form of light, then alone it becomes perceptible. And pure unconditioned electricity cannot be perceived by us, just an illustration. Similarly also, pure existence cannot be perceived, nor pure consciousness be perceived. Only when that existence or awareness becomes conditioned by name and form, then alone it becomes perceived. So conditioned awareness or conditioned existence alone can be perceived, not unconditioned existence or not unconditioned awareness, and therefore you cannot establish existence of a second awareness. So when you say that this awareful being who is a limited fellow cannot be the creator of a sprout or thing like that, then anything other than a conscious being is necessarily going to be jadam or inert. जीवाद भिन्नस्य घटवत् अचेतनत्व नियमात् अन्यः कर्ता नास्ति एव इति व्यतिरेक निश्चयात्. जीवाद भिन्नस्य घटवत् अचेतनत्व नियमात्, that whoever is separate from or different from jiva, the conscious being, can only be ghata. Anything that is different from me is what? Anything that I can visualize, I can objectify. And what can I objectify? Only a pot and things like that. Whatever I can objectify must necessarily be inert. Ghatavat achetanatva niyamat anyah karta nasti. Even if you accept Ishvara as a Purusha Vishesha, you cannot visualize him. So how do you arrive at him? Suppose as the Nyayikas would say, that Ishvara is Purusha Vishesha. The Jivas are all limited beings. Ishvara is a special conscious being without any limitations. How do you arrive at it? Because you can't see him. You cannot visualize him. And then what's the pramanam to know such an Ishvara? Your yukti cannot be pramanam because mind cannot visualize or comprehend Ishvara such as this. So whatever a jiva can visualize is always going to be limited and therefore inert. And if I, the jiva, is not the creator of a sprout, then anything other than me also cannot be the creator because anything other than me is limited, inert. Anyah karta nasti eva. Therefore we have to say that there is no creator of the sprout. You cannot, in short, you cannot arrive at the creator of a sprout. Iti vyatireka nischayat. So even anvaya nischaya cannot be, because vyatireka nischaya is that this ankura has a karta. You cannot assert that because ankura cannot have karta. This is the vyatireka nischaya is there. And therefore anvaya nischaya, namely this ankura is ankurang sakartrukam, you cannot arrive at. So you cannot arrive at the karta of anybody, anything. Yat karyam tat sakartrukam iti vyapti jnana asiddhi. And therefore, that whatever is the product must necessarily have a karta. This vyapti jnanam is not within the range of your perception. And therefore, you cannot, asiddhi meaning, you cannot establish or prove this particular vyapti. Say, look at the last lines of page 104 in Purnanandya. It's interesting. Yat karyam tat sakartrukam iti samanya vyapti jnana yat karyam tat sakartrukam. Whatever is the effect must necessarily have a karta. Iti samanya vyapti jnana. This is what we call samanya vyapti, which is applied in particular cases. Ankuradikarya bhi sakartrukatva siddhau. Alright, since Ankura is also karyam, therefore by the strength of the samanya vyapti, Ankura also must have a karta. Okay. Such a karta kaha? Then you ask the question, okay, there is a karta of the creator of this Ankura. Who is that creator? Iti ukte sati asamarthyat jivo na bhavati. This poor jiva is not samartha, is not capable to bring about a sprout, you know. What can you bring about? Nothing. What can we create? Nothing. Jiva cannot be author of anything. You can't say you created this house also or a hall. All you have done is put together certain things which are already available. So, jiva or an individual cannot be the author of anything. That individual can only function within the framework of the existing laws. We cannot actually go beyond the potential that a thing has. Otherwise, you could create gold out of out of sand or something like that. You cannot do that. Whatever potential sand has, that the potential you can explore. And therefore, you cannot claim authorship of anything. Asamarthyat, jiva does not have the samarthya or the capability of changing the nature of things. नहि स्वभाव भावनाम व्यावर्तेत प्रकृतेरन्यथा भावः न कथंचित भवितुम अर्हति. And so all we can do is to function within the realm of Prakriti. Jiva does not have the samarthya or the capability of changing the nature of anything. Kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, anyatha kartum shakyam is only for Ishvara. Jiva is within only the range of framework of the laws. And so we know that I have not done it. Who broke the bow of Shiva? I didn't do that, he said. Similarly, who created this sprout? I did not do, because I know that I don't have that capability. Parisheshad Ishvara iti tatsiddhi. See, the Jiva cannot be the Karta, therefore Nayayika would say Parisheshad. By the law of elimination, who can be the Karta? Ishvara alone has created the sprout. Who created the sprout? Ishvara. Who sends the rain? Ishvara. Tell the children, they'll repeat. Thank God they have not yet learned this much logic, therefore. He says, Iti tat siddhi vaktavya saeva na sambhavati. But then you cannot arrive at Ishvara by parishesha, by law of elimination, because jivat anyasya ghatadivat achetanatva niyamena. The niyama is, the law rule is that anything that is other than jiva is achetanam, is inert like a pot. Ankuradikaryasya karta eva nasti, and therefore effect such as ankura doesn't have a karta. Iti akartrutva nischaya sati, akartrukatva nischaya sati, that there is no karta of the sprout that you can establish. Sakartrukatva jnana sambhavena samanya vyapti jnana siddhehe. So you cannot arrive at the karta of the sprout, therefore even that samanya vyapti, that yadyat karyam tat sakartrukam, even that also is threatened now. That is also not established. तथा च कार्यत्वलिंग का अनुमानम न सकृतृकत्व साधनम येन ईश्वर सिद्धि स्यात्. And therefore कार्यत्वलिंग का अनुमानम, this अनुमानम which employs karya as a linga, yadyat karyam tat sakartrukam, their karya becomes a lingam. न सकृतृकत्व साधनम येन ईश्वर सिद्धि स्यात्, that अनुमानम is not adequate to establish the existence of God. इति प्रथम अनुमानम दूषयित्वा, thus finding a fault with that anumanam. Dvitiyam anumanam dushayati lakshanalingaka iti. What is second anumanam is what? Says lakshanalingaka anumane tu badaha. Lakshanalingaka was this, that jagat karanatvad, no, that's okay. Sarvajñatva siddhi lakshanaditi. Sakarta sarvajñah sarvaka jagat karanatvad व्यतिरेकेण कुलालादिवदिति सर्वज्ञत्व सिद्धि. By first anumanam ईश्वर अस्तित्व सिद्धि, by lakshana ka, so lakshana linga ka anumanam, where this lakshanam janmadhyasya yada itself becomes linga. By that anumanam you want to arrive at the sarvajñatva, but when the first anumanam is not established, the second anumanam also cannot be established. Lakshana linga ka anumane tu badaha. Bada means what? Sadhya bhava nischaya. Then you cannot arrive at sadhya or what you want to establish. Why? Says Puranandiya, it's interesting. This is, I am reading it in detail because this is an everyday business. Ishvara is sarvajñah, sarvashaktiman. How do you arrive at? Not by anumanam, only by what the Shruti says. People want to arrive at it by anumanam, and if you want to prove God, when you go out in the world and people ask you, and you want to prove God by logic, you will be immediately attacked. And you cannot prove. All it requires is an intelligent person. That we cannot say that we can prove God. We can only say that our scriptures say, our teachers say, and therefore we accept it in all trust, so that someday we will also know it. That's all you can say. If you know it already, you can say, I also know it. Or you can say, someday we will also know it. Whatever. But then, what is our pramanam? Only Shruti and Acharya. So, Lakshana Linga ka anumane tu bada meaning sadhya bhavaha. Says Purnanandiya, Ishvarasya tanmade sarvajñatvam nama sarva vishayaka jnana ashrayatvam tacca jnanam janyam ajanyam va. When you say Ishvara is Sarvajna, means omniscient. What do you mean by omniscient? Is omniscience separate from the omniscient? That's how, when you call him Purusha Vishesha, all-knowing person, then the knowledge is separate from the person. Person becomes what? Jnana Ashraya. Jnata or the knower is Ashraya, the locus of knowledge. Knower is then different from the knowledge. What is the nature of your omniscience? That is now very important. If Sarvajñatvam, according to you, Ishvarasya Tanmate, meaning what? Vaisheshikamate, Sarvajñatvam Nama, Sarva Vishayaka Jnana Ashrayatvam. The Ishvara is Ashraya, the locus of all the knowledge, of all the things, of all the time. Alright, let us see, now examine what is the nature of that knowledge. Tatcha Jnanam Janyam Ajanyam Va. That knowledge that Ishvara has of all the things, is that knowledge born or unborn? Is it Nitya Jnanam ever there, or is it Jnanam that occurs? Just as when I open my eyes and I see things, the knowledge occurs. When I apply my ears and I hear sounds, the knowledge is Janyam, meaning it occurs or it obtains. So knowledge that we have is what? Something that is born or something that occurs. Is the knowledge of Ishvara like that, or Ishvara is ever all-knowing all the time? Na adhyaityaha asharirasya. Does Ishvara have a body? Does God have a body? If he has a body, then it must have a form. If he has a form, it is limited in a given place, and form, therefore it is created, limited in time. In that case, one who is limited in time and place cannot be omniscient. The one who is omniscient must necessarily be all-pervading also. That one who is all-pervading cannot have a particular body. And so, asharirasya iti, said Purana Ratna Brahma says, asharirasya janya jnana yogat apanipado javano grahita yattad adreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam achakshushrotram tadapanipadam achakshushrotram tad apanipadam. By that the chakshu, shrotra, pani, pada, meaning all the organs of perception, organs of action, all of these are negated in Ishvara. Adreshyam, in that all the perception also is negated. So that Ishvara is what? Merely of the nature of pure consciousness, which cannot be objectified, which has to be of the nature of self. That is the Ishvara that we accept. And that is the Ishvara who is omniscient. What is the nature of omniscience? Not Jnana Ashrayatvam, Jnana Swarupatvam. Omniscience of Ishvara according to Vedanta is of the nature of knowledge, not being the locus of knowledge. If one is locus of knowledge, knowledge is generated by means other than oneself, like sense organs of the mind. But God doesn't require sense organs of the mind in order to be omniscient. He is the nature of knowledge itself. That is the nature of omniscience. Of course, along with Maya, he becomes omniscient in the other primary sense also. Omniscience as being of the nature of awareness is secondary omniscience. Primary omniscience is with the Upadi of Maya. Okay, so Sarva Vishayaka Jnana Ashrayatvam. The Ashrayatvam is in Maya, again not in Brahma. Tatcha Jnanam Janyam Ajanyam Va Na Adhyahiti Asharirasya Janya Jnana Yogat. So when one doesn't have Sharira, meaning one doesn't have a body or sense organs on the mind, if Ishvara is such, then he cannot have, there is no means of knowledge. So Janya Jnana Yogat. He cannot be the locus of knowledge that is born as a result of contact of sense organs with sense objects. Na dvitiyaha, it janya jnanam it cannot. So ajanyam also it can be. Yat jnanam tad manojanyam. If Ishvara does not have sharira, doesn't have mind, then he cannot have janya jnanam at all. Iti vyapta virodena nitya jnana asiddhehe. So if Ishvara does not have a mind, doesn't have a body, he cannot have knowledge. And therefore, nitya jnanam also cannot be. So, it cannot have janya jnanam, nor can it have nitya jnanam. Janya jnanam, because no sharira. Nitya jnanam not there, because also there is no sharira, because you require a mind for any kind of knowledge. So, jnana abhava nischayat. At least the nischaya is what? There is a sarvajñatva abhava nischaya is there, because God, such as the one you present, if he doesn't have a body or the mind, he cannot have the knowledge, and therefore you cannot arrive at omniscience, because you are comparing with a pot maker. Understand? You are extending this kulala, that illustration is extended to God. So kulala is an individual entity, and you present Jagat Karta also as an individual entity. That is why this difficulty is there. We don't give illustration of kulala to arrive at Ishvara. Otherwise, if you present then whatever limitations an anumanam has, all those limitations will be found there. Kimiha kinkaya sakalu kimupayas tribhunam kimadharo dhata. If all these questions will arise if you stretch the analogy of or drishtanta of a kumbhara or of a pot maker to the Jagat Karta. That's what they do. Because when you present inumana inference for arriving at the Jagat Kartrutvam or Sarvajñatvam, then what is the illustration you have? Ghatadivat. So Ghata Karta is what? An individual having a mind and sense organs and a body. But Sarvajña, if one has a mind and a sense organs and body, one cannot be omniscient because every mind is going to be limited. So Ashariri if he is, then he cannot have knowledge because he requires mind to have knowledge. And therefore, you cannot arrive at Ishvara as an entity, separate from the world. So they present Ishvara as a Tarastha, one who is separate from the world. You cannot arrive at that. Jnanapadam, Ashrita Jnanapadam, Jnanaparam, Tatha cha Lakshanlinga Anumana Bhadat, na Sarvajñatva Sadhanam, yena Sarvajñatvam Siddhyeti Bhavaha. And therefore, this Anumanam is not adequate to arrive at the Sarvajñatvam of God. And therefore, you cannot arrive at Ishvara, you cannot establish Ishvara. This is what these people say, having said it, he realized what he is doing. Sometimes, in order to dismiss some other opinion, like dismiss the Nayayikas or Vaisheshikas, because you wanted to prove Shruti as Pramanam, and therefore you have to dismiss Anumanam as Pramanam, and therefore you have to dismiss Ishvara arrived at by Anumanam also. When you dismiss Anumanam, then you dismiss also Ishvara arrived at by Anumanam. So he realized that he has dismissed Ishvara. That's a great sin. Therefore Shlokaha, immediately he writes a verse here, this Purnananda. All these people in the core are what? See this, what is in the core, it becomes manifest. Behind all the arguments also, what kind of a heart is there? A God-fearing heart is there, He doesn't want to offend God. God becomes offended because he says, hey, in the process of dismissing Anumanam as Pramanam, you dismiss me? He says, no, we don't intend to dismiss you. Says, Shloka, Sarvajñam Karanam Khadehe, Krishnakhyam Sudhi Shruti Sambhatam. Krishna Bhakta, Vandeham Ishwaram Gopi, Chitta Padma Madhuvradam, Paravadina, Anumanat Ishvara Siddhi, Iti Ukte, Tat Khandanartham, Na Ishvara Siddhi, Ityadi Ucharita, Shabdajanya Doshi Nirasaya, Atra Mangalam Kritam. At least you said, Na Ishvara Siddhi, you say, that there is no Ishvara, you said that. Even that Ucharanam also is what? Is Ashubha. Or, therefore Mangalam is required. So, you said, even unknowingly or without an intention, said, no, Ishvara cannot be established. You said it, and therefore, Ucharita Shabdajanya Doshi Nirasaya. You utter such words, and therefore these words create dosha. And whatever dosha is created, papa is created by even such utterance, there must be prayaschitta karma. For that, Mangalam Krutam Ita Mantavyam. Somebody asks, why do you write this verse here? He himself explains, Mangalam Shabda Janya Dosh Nirasaya, Mangalam Krutam Iti Mantavyam. May you please? Because the Vidwans will say, what are you bringing in between? What is this? This Mangalam is necessary, this prayer is necessary because some dosha is there by uttering such sentences or making such statements. No, there is no Ishvara, In fact, what was meant is, Anumanam is not Pramanam, but then you have to stretch that argument by saying Ishvara cannot be established. Sarvajñam Karanam Khadehe. Kha means space. Khadehe, of the universe beginning from space. Khadi is a Jagat. Kham is the Adi of which is called Khadi, meaning what? Jagat. Because Vedadi or Khadi. Khadehe means Jagataha. Jagataha Karanam Sarvajñam. The omniscient is the cause of the creation. What is his name? Krishnakhyam. The one who is known as Krishna. He is the omniscient Lord who is a creator or the cause of this creation. Shruti sammatam, not anumiti sammatam, Shruti sammatam. That which is something that is revealed by the Shruti, or which is the vision of the Shruti. Vandeham Ishwaram, to that Ishvara, Vandeham, I salute, I prostrate. Who is he? Gopi Chitta Madhuvratam, Gopi Chitta Padma Madhuvratam. Madhuvratam means a honeybee, you know. Madhu means honey, Madhuvratam means honeybee. Where are the honeybees? Always Padma. Wherever the lotus is, that's where the honeybees are. And what's the lotus? Gopi Chitta. So Chitta, or the mind of the gopis, is a lotus. And Lord is always in the mind of the gopis. Like the honeybees are around the lotus. So the Lord Krishna, who is always in the mind of the gopis, who in fact is the omniscient Lord, and which is the vision of the Shruti, to Lord such as this, who is the cause of this creation, I salute. In order to neutralize any kind of a dosha that is generated by such utterances. Because you get carried away. In arguments, you get carried away. When you get carried away, sometimes you go beyond your bounds. Maryada is also sometimes transgressed. Then immediately you realize and then come back to the Maryada. Anyway. Sarvajneshwara siddhau shrutehe pranam pramanyam swatantrena darshyan anumanasya tanirasyati tasmaditi. And therefore, Ratna Prabhakara says, tasmad atindriyarthe shruti eva sharanam. Atindriyarthe, for those things, the matters which are beyond the scope of the sense organs, shruti eva sharanam, we always have to take the refuge of Upanishad. Anumanam, etc., cannot be our sharanam. They will deceive you at some point in time. Anumana abhasa looks all right, but when you press it, then it will deceive you. It will be found to be inadequate. What is sarvajñatvam that you accept? Says a Siddhante, sarvajñatvam nama sarva avabhasa kshama vijnana swarupatvam. Sarvajñatvam nama vijnana swarupatvam. So in Siddhanta, meaning in Vedanta, when it says Brahma is sarvajñam, sarva shakti, when Brahma is called by Bhashyakara as sarvajñam, he means Brahma and not Ishvara. In which case, what is the nature of omniscience of Brahma? Is what? Jnana swarupatvam, being of the nature of jnanam or awareness. Sarva avabhasa kshama, that awareness or the knowledge that illumines every form of knowledge. So Brahman is of the nature of awareness that illumines every form of knowledge that takes place everywhere. And therefore, by way of being the illuminator of every form of knowledge, Brahman, which is of the nature of awareness, is called Sarvajñam by the Vedantins, and not Sarvajñam in the sense of the Naiyayikas or Vaisheshikas.